speak to Onur Erim, who is a political analyst, of course, an author specializing in Turkish and U.S. politics. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
You know, it really is interesting because everyone that has contradicted Trump in the White House administration has basically been taken out. He doesn't tolerate that well. But here we're seeing John Bolton arguably be one of the most public to contradict Trump's very stern line that they are pulling troops out of Syria. The United States doesn't need to be in Syria. It's sand, it's death. Yet nothing happens to John Bolton. And he's moving forward now with this line that they will stay in Syria to protect U.S. interests and Israeli interests. Do you think President Trump is perhaps trying to play both sides here?
It definitely seems that way. He may be trying to, play the both sides. He may be testing waters with Turkey to see how much, how much he can stretch out Turkey's tolerance to what's going on. But certainly, yes, there is something that is going on besides what Trump has been talking about for months, probably since his election almost. He was the first one to say that they'll pull out of Syria about a year before, maybe a year and a half before. So, yes, he may be trying to play the both sides. He may be testing waters with Turkey. It is obvious right now that the U.S. has not been in the place that it wanted in Syria from day one. And now they're trying to go to plan B, C, D, E, F. We'll see.
So where do you think this conversation will go today with John Bolton in Ankara?
I think Turkey has been very much consistent with what he said, what she said to want to have in Syria. Syria has to stabilize. For problems to end in Syria in the short term and in the long term, there has to be not only stabilization, but also the redevelopment of the country. Now, the numbers were just released yesterday that Syria is expected to be the #1 in GDP growth in the world in 2019. This tells us a lot. But from day one, what Erdogan and Turkey has been doing, as we watch very closely, that it's trying to build schools, it's trying to build hospitals, it's trying to normalize the life, because unless you bring some kind of stabilization and normalization into the country, as President Erdogan mentioned in his article, in his op-ed in New York Times, the youth there will have no choice but to sway into directions that nobody wants them to. Right. So you need to give them jobs, you need to give them health care, you need to give them education. That's what Erdogan has been saying from day one, and hopefully the world will start listening to him.
Right. It seems Turkey is taking more of a long-term vision of this, while the United States, at least for now, is very much looking at the short-term interests. One of those interests, as we said, and John Bolton made very clearly, is to protect Israeli security regarding Syria. President Erdogan just said that line is absolutely unacceptable. But tell us exactly what it means. What does the U.S. genuinely need to protect for Israel in the Syrian context that works against Turkish interests?
The sum of what has been said in that area that I summarize to myself is that the U.S. or Israel, or some of U.S. and most of Israel, is trying to establish a presence there that will sort of act as a wall, act as a castle before Israel to protect them, have them better and different access to warm waters, to Mediterranean, have them access to more countries in the area without any disruption. So Israel's interest in Syria is not for the benefit of Syria. It's solely for their own benefit. As you said, it is easy for U.S. to say, I called quits, I'm going to pull out, see what happened. Now, a lot of people have been mistakenly thinking that they had a lot of presence in Syria. I think the total of troops that U.S. had in Syria was just over 2,500 personnel, including everybody. Turkey does not have the luxury of saying that. We need to look into Syria's midterm and long-term interests. We need to have a stabilized Syria. We need to have a unified country where problems are not right across our border. The U.S. is only involved in Syria if it likes to. We don't have that luxury.
You know, another line that Turkey has been reiterating here is that the terrorists, they say, are the YPG, do not represent our Kurdish brothers. Turkey continues to say this is not something the U.S. really does understand, that these YPG elements are not the Kurds of Syria. They are rather a militia group that represents, as Turkey believes, a minority. Do you think the United States doesn't understand that, or is it easier for them just to pretend that the Kurds are all the Kurds and we're protecting an entire people by being in Syria, a people that they keep insinuating Turkey would actually be threatening if they were to enter, as they plan to, in their own security interest?
My understanding is the public doesn't understand, because the public is always, in many world affairs, are distant from our knowing the facts. But DC, I don't believe there's a single person that does not understand the difference.
Okay.
They don't, it's not in their interest to understand, which is exactly how they're acting. Look at Senator Graham. Look at what he said 2 or 3 years ago. Look at what he's saying today. Now, U.S. is trying to continue to use the scenario where YPG is a group of Kurdish, a group that are peaceful. Well, I shouldn't say peaceful, but in the interest of Syrian democracy, on the side of the U.S., on the side of Israel, on the side of Saudi Arabia, whomever is against in Turkey in this sense. But I think everybody in Capitol Hill understands what is going on. They like to keep using them for as much as possible for their own interest. But there will come a day, which may already come, we may just not know about it, but the U.S. will turn its back against YPG, PYD, because they're going to have to, because they know this is just another terrorist group. It's a derivation of PKK. They know this very well. And these poor fellows are going to be left out on their own. Do they deserve it? Absolutely. They absolutely deserve it. But, and everybody's going to start attacking the U.S. in the region again, because the U.S. will have pulled yet another position where they leave people out in the open just to be gotten rid of.
Okay, Onur, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks so much for coming in, as always.